Hi, welcome to the Personal History Hub. This video is going to be looking at the roles of both President Kennedy and President Johnson in furthering civil rights. So let's have a look at Kennedy first. So during the 1960 presidential election campaign, Kennedy ensured that he campaigned in urban areas where there were lots of black voters. Kennedy was also key to releasing King from jail in Atlanta in 1960 after his arrest following a sit-in. This won him quite a lot of support within black communities. However, Kennedy did win the election by a very narrow margin. So out of 68 million votes cast, Kennedy won only by 112,000, just over 112,000 votes. So winning that vote had proved to be crucial for Kennedy. So in his inauguration speech, Kennedy put forward the idea of what he called the new frontier. So one part of this was to achieve equality for black people in America, but he did have to be sensitive with his approach as he faced a lot of opposition, not only from within his own party, so remember the Dixiecrats, but also from white supremacists, especially in the South. So it was a fine line for Kennedy. He didn't want to upset anybody too much. He had to try and tailor it so that most people would be happy. So during his time as president, these are the things that Kennedy did to help further civil rights. He appointed 5 black federal judges, including Thurgood Marshall. So Marshall was a leading civil rights activist, so remember he was quite active in the NAACP, and his appointment showed his commitment to the cause. He appointed his brother, Robert Kennedy, as Attorney General. This meant that law courts could be used to ensure civil rights laws were not avoided. So Kennedy kind of used his brother to bring about change in that way. He appointed other black Americans to his administration. To name a few, Carl Rowan was Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, and Mercer Cook was the ambassador to Norway. Okay, so involving African Americans in his own administration as well. He threatened legal action against the state of Louisiana for refusing to fund schools that were not segregated. He sent 23,000 government troops to ensure that just one black student, James Meredith, could study at the University of Mississippi. There's another video on James Meredith case if you want some more information on that. He threatened to evict the Washington Redskins football team from their stadium, which was funded by the federal government, unless they agreed to start hiring black players. He introduced a civil rights bill to Congress in February 1963, which aimed to give black people equality in public housing and education. So he obviously did die, though, before that was passed. So this decision won him a lot of supporters, though, amongst black Americans. And he pressed for escorts for the Freedom Riders as well. Okay, there's another video on the Freedom Riders if you want more information on them also. However, Kennedy's achievements were quite limited, so he didn't really play a leading role in the civil rights movement because he always feared losing the support of the Southern Democrats, so those Dixiecrats who opposed civil rights. So remember that they were within his own party. So he can't pass laws unless Congress are with him. The majority of Congress are with him. So he doesn't want to annoy them too much, push them too far so that they start voting against him or leading, say, filibusters to stop bills from being passed. And he only stepped in with full, firm commitment after the horrific events of Birmingham, Alabama. So again, there's another video on Birmingham if you want some more information about what actually happened in Birmingham. But Kennedy really is a president that only properly acts on civil rights when he's really, really forced to, when he absolutely has to. Okay, so there are some positives, however, it's quite limited for Kennedy. Let's have a look at Johnson now. So after the assassination of Kennedy in November 1963, it was his vice president, Lyndon Johnson, who then became president. Initially, he becomes president just because Kennedy has died and he was the vice president. Okay, so remember that he's not voted in as president initially. He was able to push the Civil Rights Bill through the House of Representatives and through the Senate, ensuring that those Southern Democrats who opposed the bill were counterbalanced by Republicans. Johnson had been in politics himself since 1938, but he needed all of his skills to persuade and cajole the Republicans to vote with him. He put forward his vision that he called the Great Society, which would attack racial injustice and poverty. So the Great Society is not just about civil rights, it's also about poverty as well. So it's kind of similar to Kennedy's New Frontier. There was very deep shock in the USA at Kennedy's assassination. So this happened on television. Loads and millions of people saw it. And there was some in Congress who did vote sympathetically for the bill due to Kennedy's assassination. So remember, it's Kennedy who introduces the bill, but he dies before it can be passed. Johnson also won some support in Congress because he was a Southerner from Texas. So he himself was from the South, not necessarily the deep South, but Texas. So he knew the Dixiecrats and he did have good personal relations with him, which helped him a lot with trying to cajole them into helping him pass this civil rights bill. Johnson addressed both houses of Congress and said no memorial oration, which means speech, or eulogy, which is a tribute, could more eloquently honour President Kennedy's memory than the earliest possible passage of the Civil Rights Bill, for which he fought so long. So even though some of the Southern Democrat senators employed that filibuster tactic, Johnson was eventually able to win enough support after Vice President Humphrey won over some of those who were still unsure about the bill. Okay, so Johnson is successful in getting that civil rights bill passed. So these are some of the things then that Johnson actually did. So the Civil Rights Act is seen as President Johnson's greatest achievement. He was the one who pressed for it. However, there were many Black Americans who did criticise it as being insufficient and also coming too late. So naturally, there were many white Americans as well in the South who resented it and tried to seek to make it fail. Okay, there were a couple of other things that Johnson also did as his time as president. So he placed Thurgood Marshall into the Supreme Court. He pressed for the Voting Rights Act in 1965, which I'll also do another video on if you want more information on what that specifically is. He intervened with executive orders to have the Alabama National Guard escort marchers from Selma to Montgomery. Again, I'll do another video on that march. And he pressed Southern politicians to support the Civil Rights Bill. Okay, thanks. Don't forget to subscribe to Regional History Hub. So the next video I will do on the Civil Rights Act of 1964.